to Similarly Different. Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Similarly Different. On today's episode, I have not only a beautiful woman, but an intelligent one at that. We have a psychologist, a doctor who blends holistic health, neuroscience, and psychology all into one to tell you the truth about optimism and how she lives her life and all the things that she learns and as well exercises. We have the one and only Dr. Deepika Chopra, the Optimism Doctor. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. This is so exciting.
Of course. So I'm so excited to get to know about everything that you have going on, to let everyone know about the cards, the new kids cards, the book that you have coming out. But for those that may not know who the Optimism Doctor is and everything that you've built so far, let them know a little bit about yourself.
Yes, so I hold a doctorate in clinical health psychology. I did a double postdoc fellowship right here at UCLA in Cedars, but that was many years ago, and I've always focused for the past decade or so on the science behind optimism and resiliency and joy. And along the way, throughout that practice, I wouldn't give up my clinical training for the world. It was the best foundation, but I felt like I just was practicing differently. Mm-hmm. I was really interested in this idea of what people really wanted out of life and what they were expecting to happen and what they were good at and their strengths, and a lot more than sort of what their struggles were, mm-hmm. although we talked about that too. And over time, I had learned through neuroscience that the brain is this anticipatory organ. So it's constantly thinking in future tense. And that really struck with me because I was so much of what I was learning to help people with the different modalities in psychology was past driven. And, sometimes we were talking about the present, but we weren't often talking about the future and what people were predicting about their own lives and what they were expecting and what their self-limiting beliefs were to get in the way of what they were expecting. And so I started really focusing on this idea of optimism, mm-hmm. and really heading into all the research that was already available on it and how I could help people change their idea on positive future directed thinking and building their resiliency. And so I became very obsessed with that. And I started seeing people, and instead of therapy, I would call it self-worth work. Mm. And over time, it just seemed natural and a natural fit to sort of go off on my own. And I would give people in the very early days a little quiz that I came up with to measure how optimistic they really were. And we talk about all kinds of stuff. And one client in particular I remember was so if you just told me, if I just came in here and you told me I'm your optimism doctor, I think I would understand all that without all the background. And there's certain things, I love that. I appreciated it because I am good at some stuff and I know what I'm not great at, and I'm not great at being succinct. So I was if I just walked in here and I was I'm your optimism doctor, we could have just skipped that 15-minute intro. And he was yeah. And so it kind of stuck. People started referring to me as the optimism doctor, and over time, I think just organically, I trademarked it.
I love that so much. I am so excited to have you here. Now, for those that don't know, nobody knows on here, I actually met her 2 years ago. We realized right now, I thought it was a year ago, but mm-hmm. I met her 2 years ago in Santa Barbara on a brand trip. It was actually my first ever brand trip.
It was also mine. Yeah. Oh no, I had gone to one other, but it felt it was so close by that it felt no big deal. This was where we actually spent the night, and we're on one large sleepover. I know, it was so beautiful. We stayed in our own little cabins, and they were so beautiful with Bean Frenchie, which is Ashley Tisdale's brand. And I got to spend time with her very little because you had to, it was a short brand trip. It was a short brand trip, mm-hmm. but I feel I came.
And you left early.
Yeah, I think I came for 1.5 days instead of the 2 days. I had to leave early. I have little children. Now I have lots of little children. I feel 3 counts for lots.
Yes.
I can say lots now. It feels like a lot.
Because one already has so many personalities, so.
Yeah, yes. I have a 7-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 1-year-old.
And when she was leaving, it was so cute because I love conversations and card games, and literally gave me out of her own bag her card game, which we're going to talk about later. And she also has a kids version, which I love. But I wanted to talk to you when I was thinking of different guests to have on the show, because I get told by strangers that I'm very optimistic. Mm-hmm. But actually, one, it's been a lot of work. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of internal work. And two, I have not always been, or I'm not always the most optimistic person, even though I give that energy. So I wanted to kind of go through with you on how you became an optimism doctor, basically. Because for me, you know, even with the conversation that we were having off camera right now about how you feel so much,
Yes.
I feel like it's a similarly different. You feel a lot, but how can you feel a lot and stay happy if you're feeling such emotion? So where did the name even Optimism Doctor come from, and where did you get your start?
Oh my God, there's so much to unpack here. I love it.
Yeah.
Every question you just asked me is my favorite question. First and foremost, I am known as the Optimism Doctor, but I am not the most optimistic person.
I love that.
I have to just put that out there. In fact, I feel like in my little microcosm of my like immediate family, I'm probably the least optimistic, like naturally. And I love that you're like, but I have to work on it. And I love that you said that, because at the core of it, optimism is a muscle. It's not a personality trait. And so we all have to work on it. It's something that we have to work out. And I think that's something that is like a big misconception. There's a lot of misconceptions around optimism. And so I feel like what I am passionate about at a starting point is helping redefine what optimism truly is. Because honestly, I truly believe through all my research and work that optimism, like real optimism, is, I know this sounds cheesy and cliche, but it is literally the secret key to life.
Yeah.
Because a true optimist is not someone that is devoid of reality and like positive all the time and always seeing the world through rose-colored glasses. That's actually not how we define from a scientific basis what optimism is. A true optimist is someone that is very mindful and aware of the roadblocks, the setbacks, the less than ideal situations, the things that do not go their way. They are like painfully aware of it, and they're intentionally looking straight at it. But at the very same time, they believe, the caveat there is they believe those things are temporary and something that they have the ability to overcome, even if they don't know how or when, but they just know they will.
Right. Now, I think for me, so I have been actually recently battling something that I've been trying to navigate, of coming across certain people around me that are hyper positive. And I'm trying to figure out if it's a me problem, which it could be. But I'm like, it aggravates me so much when I'm around certain people like that, because I feel sometimes people confuse being optimistic with not allowing yourself to process the negative emotion.
Wait, so does it aggravate you? I'm jumping in as like
Yeah.
as the therapist here now.
I love this therapy session.
Does it aggravate you because you don't feel it's real and you feel like it's inauthentic?
I feel like it doesn't validate the feeling that I'm feeling. Instead, you want to instantly switch it into positive.
Oh, okay. I love this. And I don't love this for you, but
Yeah.
I love this because of what I'm about to say to you right now. That's toxic positivity.
Yeah.
And like the thing about that is we have this term now. I think a lot of people have heard about it, but from a science-based perspective, we've always known that that existed. And what I will say is about toxic positivity, whether it is coming at you through someone else or even ourselves, I always feel like the person that is there and saying something that feels in the realm of toxic positivity is always coming from a good intention.
And that's why it's so hard.
It's so hard because they're, and it's a human nature thing. We feel that when someone comes to us, whether it's a child, a friend, a colleague, and someone is going through a hard time, our automatic sort of like idea or thought process is they want us to fix this. And not only do they want us to fix this for them, because that's what it would mean for me to be a good friend, but I personally can also not withstand the discomfort of this situation right now, because then I start to understand that I might have to confront some of my own feelings. And so it comes from these two angles, and it comes from a good intention. But what I always like to share with people is, more often than not, I would say almost always, someone that is reaching out to you or going through something is probably very rarely asking for a solution. What they're asking for is space. They're asking for validation, for relatability, for just a safe space.
Yeah.
And it also takes the pressure off when you think about it that way. Like, you don't have to solve everybody's problem. And this is like such a big learning lesson as a parent. You know, most of the time when even a kid is coming to you, they just they want to be heard. They want to be seen. They want to feel like they're not alone, but they're not necessarily looking for someone to jump to making it better or erase, clean up the mess or, try really hard as a friend to be like, oh, like this is so uncomfortable. I don't cry.
Right.
Or like,
well, also you're taking a kid's
look on the bright
independence
side
at
Yes.
that time, right?
Yeah.
When they want to be so independent, if you're like
Yeah.
fixing it for them, you're kind of teaching them that they're not going to be able to figure it out on their own.
Yeah, and this idea of toxic positivity, the reason why it's toxic is because we as humans, we were actually made to experience the full range of human emotion, all of it. The grief, the mourning, the anger, the sadness, the elation, the hopefulness, the messiness, the stress, the struggle, the excitement. Like we were meant as humans, we were built to experience that full range. And what something like good vibes only or, just be happy or you don't have it that bad or that, that's a big one where it's kind of like, imagine what someone else is going through, has bigger problems than you, so feel grateful.
Yeah, and I always feel like that is invalidating somebody's feeling because while you could have a moment of realization and be grateful for what you're in, you're still human.
Yes.
And you could have worked hard for it. You could have been ripped away from something.
Yes.
You could have just been at the shorter end of the stick of a situation that you were like, this sucks. And it's okay to say, this sucks.
Right.
After an hour, after a day, could you just be like, it sucks, I've processed it, and now, life goes on? Sure, but in that moment, I think it's so important for you to be able to feel the this sucks moment, to be able to then feel the optimism and the happiness and the leveling.
Yes. You can't actually get there without feeling it. And so it is, I'm a very visual person too. And I know we spoke about that. You're visual too. And I always imagine things that I say, or when I connect something that is going to make sense for me, it's because I've like visualized it in a certain way. And I literally visualize like emotional states as like a piece of like pizza dough in front of me, and like you have to knead through it. You can't just like take the dough and like sit there and look at it and say, I hope you turn into a great pizza. Yeah. Like you gotta like, I don't know. There's just something about like the idea of like viscerally getting your hands in there and like kneading through that makes sense to me with emotions. And the same thing is true. It's like that cliche saying, like the only way like in is through. And so in order to, I always tell people it's kind of counterintuitive, but we don't build our optimism from like the blissful moments, to be honest. We build our optimism through resiliency and through persevering through struggle. So just in that definition alone, we have to go through shit.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
And so it's this like idea of having this new relationship with like not feeling like you're doing life wrong if you're experiencing the shit.
Right.
Like it's part of it.
And there's a time where I can think that we all felt like shit.
Yeah.
And it was this February with the LA fires. So like being an optimism doctor, having this title and everything, how were you dealing with that through that? Because I remember you even shared that you had to move out of your home and everything.
Yeah. I mean, again, there was a lot, just collective, I don't know that I've been experienced something like that before where it was just an entire community. I mean, really an entire city, whether you lost your home or had to evacuate or, your personal circumstance, everyone here probably at least knew someone that did one of those two things. And, it's this idea that a lot of this came up. I had a lot of feelings about it. We did evacuate and we were gone for about 7 weeks, but I was very grateful that our home was okay and we still had our belongings to go back to. It wrecked a lot and it changed our entire community. We were very close to the Palisades, and that's where we felt a sense of our familial sort of community and what we did. My kids played Little League there. Like that was our neighboring spot. That's where we went to dinner, family dinners twice a week. That's where my kids got their haircuts. It's where we went to the park. And so losing an entire way of life was so difficult. And then having so many friends. I mean, most all of my friends on the West Side who we were very close to and raising our kids with lost their homes and everything that they had their name to. Yeah. And I think it's so much more about stuff. It's a sense of security and it's an identity. And losing all that was really hard. And I think there was a lot of just a lot of mixed emotions that I think were so hard for so many people. A lot of people were trying to say the right things and just saying like, well, at least you're safe. And I think that is another form of coming from a really good intention to some of our closest friends who lost everything. And if they were, talking to them in their deepest, darkest hours, and they're like, if I hear one more person be like, at least you're alive and you're safe, I'm going to lose it. Like, is that bad of me to say? And I'm like, no, I get it. It's just, no one knows the right thing to say. Everyone felt a collective sense of grief and fear and disbelief and anger. And so
Helplessness.
Helplessness.
No matter what part of the totem pole you were in.
Yes.
Even as like a person that I was surrounded by all the fires. I'm in Studio City.
Yes.
And I could literally see all the fires surrounded. And I'm like, but why? Also guilt.
Yes.
Why is it not hitting me?
Yes. Yes.
Like, am I supposed to overextend myself in this moment because at least I have my home?
Yeah.
And then like when you do volunteer, is it even enough? Like
Right.
you're giving people beauty products.
Right.
Like, is that really gonna like pay the rent the next month? Is there, and then you help with a GoFundMe. Is that gonna help them past July? Like there's just like so many layers to it.
There's so many layers, and what we do know about times like that is, from a scientific perspective, I think we all can get it from an emotional perspective, but when we are going through our own struggles and despair, the very best thing that we can do is be given the opportunity to help someone else. There's actual real science to show that. And so people that were really struggling the most, like you saw a lot of people that were getting up and helping other people that, themselves had lost everything, but they were also helping. And so, there's this whole study that came out, which I thought was so interesting a few years ago. And I think it's our sort of commonplace, or in our intuition, we sort of tell ourselves, if you have a friend that's struggling through something really hard, you probably aren't naturally going to ask them for help for anything.
Yeah.
You're probably like, you know what, I want to take care of them. I want to just like not burden them. But what we've learned is that when you give someone the opportunity that even is struggling with depression, like this is where the study came from, those symptoms of depression and anxiety actually plummeted when they were doing something kind for someone else, because it kept them in a space that was not focused just on self, and it made them feel part of something bigger. And
I think also it releases a feeling of I'm wanted and I'm needed.
Yes.
Which we all want.
And a sense of purpose.
Yes.
Exactly.
That's okay. So I actually have an emotional science question. What are 3 science-backed habits people can adopt today to build emotional resilience?
Very good. Okay. Well, that's one of them for sure. Yeah. It's a new study that came out. I like focusing on studies that are really recent and that show us something that can be easily done in our everyday life. Like, I think things like this need to be tangible. Yeah. Like, we can all learn about science or things that might help us that are like, we have no access to, but how does that help? So I think that is one of them, which is the counterintuitive, like when you're feeling at a place of loss, instead of trying to figure it out, sometimes you're not going to be able to figure it out, right? When you're sitting in that grief or that anger, or you're in that like negative spiral, a lot of times it's not easy to just say like, well, shift your perspective, which by the way is a great tool, but sometimes we can't actually shift our perspective. We're in it. I would suggest doing something kind for somebody else, like a small favor. Like even opening the door for someone, even if it feels like the opposite of what you want to do. Or we live in LA. One of my small things that I do sometimes when I'm in a bad mood or when I'm going through something, I always let people that are trying to get
I knew you were going to say that about the car.
I let people in, and even though like before it would just like fuel my like, I'm not letting you in and I'm already in a bad mood. Now I'm like, it's this small little thing, and I kind of like smile to myself, and I'm like, I just, they needed to get somewhere, and it makes me feel like this tiny sense of control, and I did something, and I automatically have this like smile on my face, and it sort of helps. And so I would say the power of doing something kind for somebody else goes such a long way. And I don't just mean that in like a cliche. There's real hard science behind it. Yeah. Another study that came out that I find so interesting is being able to intentionally put yourself in a state of awe. So being in a state of awe is like if you've ever listened to a really beautiful piece of music, or you're looking at a piece of art, or you're taken aback by something in nature, and you feel that sense of like, whoa, like this is awesome, you know, or like I feel like there's this sense of like magicalness to it, but it's this sense of like I'm this small little piece in this like larger world.
It's like another form of gratitude.
Yeah.
To really be able to find a moment of gratitude in where you're standing. And I always say that I think travel is so important because you're able to truly zoom out and realize you're so little in the big scheme of things.
Yes. Well, like this idea of being in awe, and you find out what makes you struck with awe. For me, it's music, and a lot of times it's nature. So like even, and you don't even have to go anywhere, although that would be great if you could. You literally could have a folder on Instagram or Pinterest that is like your awe folder, and you could just start saving images of places that like strike you as like absolutely beautiful in nature or in art, or make a playlist.
I save a lot of pictures like that and reels of like nature. And the other day I opened up my phone and Courtney was like, your explore page is so aesthetic, because it's literally quotes and then like rivers, waterfalls, and I'm like, it's all I look at, because when I'm anxious, that's what I like to look at.
Well, you're utilizing social media in the right way. You know, social media gets a really bad rap, and I have hundreds of reasons why I cannot stand it, and I think it's awful. But we have to try to, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
We need to try to use it, what works for us, and use it with the way our brain works, not against it. And that's a great way. I would say, to add to that, I always have people make a joy list, all my clients. It's on your phone. It's a little note section. Anytime you feel joy at all in your life, you jot down what exactly you're doing, and then you keep this list. It's your joy list. Because when you're having a moment of struggle, you're not going to remember what it is to do. But if you have the note, you look at it and you run through it mentally, and you're just looking at it and you're saying, oh, I have like 30 seconds right now. I could, you know, go down to one of the things on my joy list used to be where we used to live. One of our neighbors a block away had this insane garden, just so beautiful. And it took me like 5 or 6 times walking by to be like, wait, this actually brings me joy. Like, not for pretend. And so I'm going to put it on my list. And I would like run out sometimes just to walk there and stand in front of it. She probably thought I was crazy. And, you know, something that would be on your joy list. I would say the last thing, although maybe those were more than 3 just jumbled up, you know, I would say science shows us that if you can hold a positive emotion for just 12 seconds, that's enough time to actually rewire your brain to start looking for more positive things.
I love that. 12 seconds is all we need. That's I feel like I do really good at like micro goals.
Yes.
Because if not, I overwhelm myself and just freeze and do nothing. So
all
12 seconds.
Yes. I'm a big believer in this idea, which I call stealing micro moments. Way more, especially now becoming a parent and being a business owner and a consultant, whatever. I don't obviously have much time like the rest of us. All of us are down on time. That's just the kind of world we live in. And I think, you know, trying to, you know, read those articles of people that have like 15-step morning routines and these like really long wellness practices and self-care, it just doesn't work for the majority of us. So I think that what is even more powerful and really makes a bigger impact is to steal these like micro moments like throughout your day, like 30 seconds at a time, 1 minute at a time, to like do something that counts. There's no amount of time that's too small. If it's something that's bringing you joy or your nervous system like calmness or neutrality.
You know what I do, and I've learned this in 2018. I had a life coach. His name is Henry. So good. And I was dealing with a lot of anxiety at the time. So he said, I see that you put yourself, and I still do, I give myself to a lot of different people, whether it be work or family or friends. And he was like, I just need you to remind yourself to breathe. Something that's so simple. But sometimes I would catch myself holding my breath.
Oh, me too.
Anxious, angry, whatever, focusing on something. And he was like, I want you to add to your calendar 3 different random times that come to you. So till this day, since 2018, I have 3 times a day it goes off in my calendar. Sometimes I catch it, sometimes I don't. But at minimum, I catch one of them a day. And whatever I'm doing, people don't even know around me, and I'll just be like,
I have that too. The reminders on my daily calendar that tell me to breathe, because I do the same thing. I am someone that holds my breath without even knowing it. And breath is such a powerful practice that we all have the ability and access to. And my favorite thing is learning different breaths. There's a really great one that works for anxiety really well. It's called the 4-7-8 breath.
Oh, yes. I've done that one before.
Yeah, it's a great one, and it's a great place to start. It's a really good one.
Now, if somebody is watching this and they're like, okay, they're talking about optimism, but they're clearly not as pessimistic as I am, what would you say to that person of why it is important to live an optimistic life?
Well, I mean, so many reasons. We have found out now that more optimistic people, number one, live longer. And not just live longer, like racking up the years, but they actually thrive longer. So our lives are extended, and the way in which we enjoy them. Optimistic people, they experience less illnesses, especially respiratory illnesses. They bounce back quicker. They have lower stress cortisol levels. They have better connections. And all this past couple of years has been really robust in the research that's come out about happiness and joy and contentment. And the number one thing, Harvard did this long study on it, the number one thing that came out as a predictor of happiness in life is connection, social connection. And we know that people that gravitate more towards optimism and practice more optimistically or work that muscle out have way better connections. Yeah. And so all around, you're also achieving goals more, you're more productive, you're more successful, you have a greater sense of purpose, and all around just emotional and physical, like so many benefits. And I do want to throw out that, from an evolutionary standpoint, we were all sort of programmed to be pessimistic. A long, long time ago, way back when, our very, very, very past ancestors who were hunters and gatherers, and they were running away from, scary things like saber-toothed tigers, the ones that constantly imagine the worst case scenario, pessimists, were prepared and they lived, and then they passed that trait on and so forth. And so there is a lot of research to show that, like, from an evolutionary perspective, we were probably built to be sort of pessimistic. But in the modern world that we live in today, there are obviously still very scary things right now. We're not going to get into those and all the things that may cause us stress. There are so many more, I would say, but they look different. And what we do know is, in order to thrive in this modern world, imagining in a chronic way the worst case scenario over and over and over does no benefit for us. In fact, it is very detrimental. And that is why, optimism, I would say, is a muscle. And the good news is, a lot of people always say, like, well, wasn't I born an optimist or a pessimist? Like, isn't it just related to my genes or like my mom or my dad or my grandparents? And what we have found, there's a lot of varying, research on this, but the most that I've ever seen is 25% of a genetic component. And so the majority and the rest of it is something that is learned.
Yeah.
So,
do you think pessimistic means depression? Because I don't necessarily do, but...
So it doesn't necessarily mean that, but absolutely pessimism is a feature of depression.
Okay.
So someone that is constantly imagining worst case scenario or has a belief that something is not great and it's going to stay that way forever, it's permanent and it's pervasive, that is a hallmark of depression. I wouldn't say that if you are someone that you think you lean more towards pessimism, that you automatically are a depressed individual. Right. I also want to caveat that, like, I don't actually believe that anyone is an optimist or a pessimist. Yeah. It is on a continuum. And in different aspects of our life, we are more prone naturally to be optimistic or pessimistic. Like, there are many aspects of my life where I think I'm kind of naturally leaning to optimism, but I will say that, like, my family's health, like just the idea of health, I am so low on optimism. Like, I score very pessimistic. It's like my Achilles heel and where all my work lies, like what I try to work on. I just skew pessimistic when it comes to, like, health stuff.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah, and we all have those.
Right.
And also it depends on what season you are in life.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like I can be optimistic if a handful of things are at least in control in my life. But it's truly hard for me to find the optimism when everything is crashing down at the same time, because I feel so off balance.
Well, you make a really interesting point. Yes, it is so much easier for us to feel hopeful when things are going our way or when we feel we have a sense of control over them. And I think the scary part, or why so many people, all of us, need this work, and the idea of real optimism, not like fake optimism,
Right.
and including myself need this work, is because the majority of life is not in our control. And so the quicker we realize that and we relate to that and we sort of understand that there are small ways every day which we can have control and exercise control, but like part of this whole process of increasing our optimism and building our resiliency and hope is also understanding that there's a lot of big stuff that we won't have control over, and it's those moments we need to practice that muscle.
And I
not
think,
when everything's going great.
Right. And I think when I started realizing as I got older, just some things, it doesn't matter how good I am. There's so many other variables in it of whether it's going to go right or wrong, that I truly have to let it go and just be like, okay, that didn't work out in my favor. It doesn't mean I'm not of value. It doesn't mean I suck. It doesn't mean anything. It feels bad, but like, let's move on and just like continue like the flow. I always tell, like, whenever I have a friend, she's like, you feel so much, but you also seem to always get yourself out of it. I'm like, because I allow myself to flow.
Yes.
I don't stop it and I don't block it. I don't allow myself to stop so much to where I sulk and I'm in the dark hole, but I allow myself to feel and give that moment of reset.
Yes, it is, again, so important to feel your authentic emotion, but not be paralyzed by it. And you can...
It's a work.
It's a work.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
Again, I'm a super visual person, and I see it like when I'm going through a tough time, like sitting in a dark room, like on the floor, and really feeling that. But then like in the distance, like seeing a door. And knowing that there's something behind that door is like the first step. I don't know what it is, but I know something different than what I'm experiencing is behind that door. And then like over time, as I like knead through the dough, I notice the door might be unlocked, or there's like a little light coming from the underneath, or like it starts to become open ajar.
Do you give yourself like a time limit? Like a day, a week?
I don't give myself a time limit, but I definitely think that to be like paralyzed by something and not move through it, I think like 2 weeks is a good mark of like, because a lot of clinical sort of work, and when you assess a patient coming in, there's a lot that are like, have you been experiencing this for 2 weeks? But I think everyone operates differently. And I think the thing about emotions is there are no time limits. Like something like grief, there's no time limit. And, you know, any part of it, I think it ebbs and flows. And in a lot of our emotions, I think we have to realize we will always carry them. You know, things that set us back and that really like crack us wide open, I don't think those things ever go away. We're always carrying them. Sometimes that load feels lighter because we have built sort of the muscles or the calluses to carry it. And we feel like, wow, I was able to enjoy X, Y, and Z, even though I know I'm carrying that. And other days it's like, I can't notice anything because this is such a heavy load.
Yeah.
And I think giving ourselves the grace, and not only grace, but just like the reality check that like we're human and that is how our emotions work.
Now, what role does identity play in how we handle stress or like even change in our life?
Well, first of all, I think that it is safe to say change is the hardest sort of state to be in for any human. Change is inevitable. It happens with and to all of us, but every one of us has a hard time with change. It's how we were built for many, many reasons. And so the thing about change is, I think that in order to become good at change, or change be tolerable at least, or exciting for some people, you have to know what you want, and you have to know what could be so different and better about your life than what you currently have in order to like buy into the idea of change and the struggle to get through it. So like knowing your why and knowing the purpose and knowing what lies ahead and how that could be so much better. And I think with stress, again, I feel like it's surprising to people, but the definition of stress is just the response to daily living.
Oh, wow.
So are you alive? Are you living your life? You're going to have stress. Of course, when stress becomes chronic, it can be very bad for you, pervasive and chronic. But ironically, one of the ways that stress becomes bad and chronic is our relationship to stress and feeling guilt or shame or overwhelm about the stress. Whereas when we start, like a lot of times I look at stress like when you're hungry and your tummy growls and you have those like hunger pangs. And so your body is sort of, your mind is telling you like, I'm hungry. Maybe I should go in the kitchen and open something up and eat it. Well, stress, if you look at it that way, it could be beautiful. And your stress is actually your body doing what it's supposed to be doing. It's telling you that you need something, or that you need to say no to something, or that you need to set a boundary, or that you need to say yes to something. Like kind of asking with curiosity, like, I'm feeling really stressed right now, or just not right, or unaligned. Like I'm not okay. So like, what is my body telling me? Like, am I not safe? Like, what am I, what is it telling me?
If somebody watching or listening was to hear this right now and they were to be like, okay, well, how do I bring myself back to zero when I'm feeling this? Do you have an exercise that maybe somebody can do when they're feeling that overwhelming feeling of stress, life is over, I can't carry all of this, like nobody understands?
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of things. I really am passionate about in the moment, like not expecting someone to solve anything, taking yourself out of, again, like what we talk about with other people coming to us, like don't try to solve it. It's too much right now. And by the way, our brains don't kick into the executive functioning piece and like problem solving from a place of like that type of deficit, or like when we're too out of whack, or we're in a really negative spiral, like we can't get there.
Yeah.
So I love this idea of like like healthy brain distractions and resets. And I know this sounds really silly, but I love like simple, tangible things. Whenever I'm spiraling, one of the ways that you said the word reset, and I love that, I reset my like brain, is I play, and I have my clients play, and I've been doing this for years. It's like the adult version of I Spy. So you go around a room and you just look around and you start naming out loud the things that you see without placing any judgment or telling a story. Like, I see a blue hat. I see a black and white picture in a frame. I see, a wood, not like, oh my God, I see this burled wood console. It looks just like the desk I have at home, because it does. Like you try to be like, okay, that's fair. Your brain wants to do that, but you just move on and you say what you see out loud. And the reason this works is it acts as your brain utilizing enough attentional capacity. We do not have unlimited attentional capacity. And so by recalling what something is and naming it out loud, you're using enough attentional capacity that you have put a stop to the worry or the spiral or trying to figure out this problem, and you've just given yourself a reset. So for that like 30, 60 seconds, you couldn't do that worrying or that negative spiral, and it acts as a reset.
I actually learned that that's so funny that you said that exercise. I learned that in high school.
You did?
And my little sister deals with really bad anxiety. I used to suffer from anxiety attacks and panic attacks in high school. And the counselor in the school actually was the one that would always tell me, look at things and tell me what it is in the color.
Yes.
So when my little sister, who's 9 years younger, started getting really, really bad anxiety attacks, probably like 5-6 years ago, she would call me spiraling, and I would just be like, she would be driving a lot of the times, and I would say, tell me what the person next to you is wearing.
Yeah.
What kind of hair do they have? What kind of texture do they have? Okay, what is the color? 3 cars in front of you. I would get so detailed so that she had to truly focus.
Yes.
And every time she would be like, whoa, thank you.
A game changer.
Yeah.
And then from that point of reset, you can always go back to your worries. No one's taken those away.
Right.
But you might, like after enough times of doing it, you might have a little space from the initial, that feeling of out of control and like primal, like drowning.
Yeah.
You have a little space from it, and maybe you're able to then access some of the other tools like perspective shifting, or even getting to a point of neutrality. Like neutral is so big. It is not talked about enough. Like we think all the time in positives and negatives. Do I feel good? Do I feel bad? There is so much power in just feeling neutral and just being, and not attaching too much, from it.
I've been trying to really sit in that and feel that. And I think because we're so used to negative and positive, I've had a handful of friends, when I would be hanging out with them, tell me, are you okay? You just seem so calm today. She's like, you're not hyper, but you're not sad, or you're not angry. And I'm like, I'm just being.
Yeah.
And it's such a I guess, unknown state for the human to be, because we're so used to like sharing that this is happening to us, or talking about like, oh my God, I can't wait to share this horrible thing that happened, or this person pissed me off, or like, oh my God, I have such great news, you know? And I'm just like, I'm just being, and I'm trying to, even if things are going bad, bring myself back to center. Even if things are going really good, I'm just like, bring myself back to center. Because the way I see it, and I don't know if this is toxic, but the way I see it is, if something goes bad and I'm bringing myself down to back to center of the good things, if something goes bad, I won't plummet too heavy.
No, I mean, the ultimate form, people always ask me when I'm on a panel, like whether it's like business stuff, or I work with a lot of corporate clients too, and they're like, what is your like definition of success? And like, I have learned now after doing this and being an adult and like having 3 kids and just like going through a lot of really, really tough times and great times, that the ultimate form of success for me is just being regulated. Like regulation, emotional regulation is so under talked about and undervalued, and like just simply having the tools to emotionally regulate, to me, is like the ultimate success.
How do you feel becoming a mother has helped you look at the approach of optimism differently?
Oh my gosh, so much. I mean, I think like so much about motherhood, to me, everything's a juxtaposition. Like everything's in opposites and in oppositions at the same time. Like I want to be here and I'm so excited, but I like also want to be with my 1-year-old. I think she's like about to walk and I'm like, I want to be in 2 places at once. Or I'm so excited to see my 7-year-old. Like he is like a man, like he's a little man and he's growing up so much, and all the things he's doing, I'm so proud of him, but I'm also equally gutted by like how much I miss him at 4. You know, and like there's all this like happening. And so the same with optimism for me in motherhood. I feel like looking at your children, I mean, like they are the future. There could be nothing more hopeful or optimistic than bringing like children, or just spending time with children, whether they're yours or not, like in this world. They're the ultimate form, I think, of optimism. You know, it just is. But then at the same time, I feel like I have struggled the most with being optimistic since becoming a mom.
Out of
like,
the
fear, worry, stress, mostly worry and anxiety. It has like tipped over in ways that I never had experienced before. And I think that a lot of times that comes from just like how much you love and how much pressure it is and you feel. And sometimes you let that pressure go and it's beautiful. And other times it's like just completely bottled up and explodes.
And what do you think is a mindset trap that you see many mothers fall into, and how would you suggest for them to get out of it?
Literally just what I said. I think the pressure of like, you're raising these little humans and you feel like from the start, like no matter what anyone says, like there's nothing you can really prep for it. Like I remember in the early days when I was breastfeeding my eldest, and I think I've shared with you, I couldn't carry my other 2. So I've had a different experience of motherhood with all 3 of my children. And there have been the highest highs and the lowest lows of my own emotional capacity. But I remember when I was breastfeeding my eldest, and I just had him, and there was just so much like pressure I felt on like every single thing about this little human is dependent on me. Like everything, like just to breathe, to eat, to like everything. And it was a lot. It was a sense of like pressure I had never experienced before. And it just grows. Like you could think like, oh, well, you know, I no longer have to watch him on a monitor because he's fine. Like if there's an issue, he can come to my room. But there's other ways in which you worry. Like motherhood is like,
and I think he starts going to school.
Yeah, it's like wearing, it's like your heart is outside of yourself and you're watching it outside of you, and you're just praying and hoping that the world in which they live in is just going to be like kind to that heart of yours. And
I hear your passion.
You know, and I think that the pressure is something that I think we can say it all day long about trying to dismantle it, but it's something that I think is just felt. And over time, I think survival, but also just what you learn and the aspects of what you don't have control over. I think motherhood has been such a big teacher to me all the way from conceiving to like now, and it keeps going. And I see how my mom is with us. Like it's just the biggest lesson to learn of like, you are not in control of everything.
How do you add on to that, navigating the pressure of being a mother and a professional?
You know, I don't believe in balance.
Okay.
I don't think anybody's got balance. I think balance is a word that is this arbitrary word that really bothers me, especially for women, because it signifies that there's this like perfect way of doing something if you just achieved it, but nobody knows what the hell that is. And so it's like, that's dangerous to just have this like, well, if you just are in perfect balance, if you just balance. So I don't believe in balance at all. I think there is no such thing. I believe in making empowered decisions and dealing with consequences. And so every decision that you're going to make, I like to look at it like I may not, and I don't think I actually do a great job as of yet. It's such a learning process for me. I'm not great at like time management. So I think I make my life harder than it is, just how I am generally.
Yeah, same.
And there's aspects of it that make sense to me why, and I wouldn't trade it. But then there's other aspects that are like, this is so silly. Like when things get fixed and they're more practical, which is my husband's thing, I'm like, oh my God, this is so much easier. And he's like, I've been telling you this for 4 years. You just couldn't see it. But I think that it is so much more about boundary setting than balance, and knowing that there are different seasons and accepting, like, for example, I can't like travel the way that I'd like to travel right now. And instead of being like down on that, I'm just like, it's not the season.
Yeah.
You know, like my travel so far when I've tried it in this way, in this season, have been exponentially stressful in ways that have like made me sick, like autoimmune flares. Like it's just not worth it to me. It's not this season. It doesn't mean it never will come. It will come when it comes. There's another season for it, you know, or even things like work. Like there have been times that I have had great opportunities and I want to go and shoot this thing or film this thing, and I want to say yes, but like my kid, you know, has his first playoff game in Little League, and like it's so important to him and it's important to me, and you make this decision, and it sucks that you have to decide sometimes and not be in two places, or, you know, figuratively or literally, but then you look at it and you're like, I made this decision, there's going to be a consequence. I made it for this pro, but there's also going to be, I'm mature enough to know these consequences, and it's just, this is the decision I made now, and I'm empowered in it, and I know the things I'm losing from it, but I know the things I'm gaining, and then the next time around I might be able to make this other decision. And so I think it's more of that.
It's like a play and pull.
Yeah,
Of like
it's a play and pull, and being intentional about it, and also knowing that it's not going to be fair.
Now, I have two last questions for you. My first one is, what is one mental health thing that is trending that you absolutely hate?
Good vibes only. I'm sorry.
Courtney agrees.
I know it's like the trend of it maybe is hopefully on its way out, but I don't know. I still hear it all the time. I know there can be some, I understand the intention behind it. And actually, I think like historically, it probably came like from a cultural perspective of like protection, like the evil eye. And like even in my culture, in the Indian culture, we have like things that are like, please no like evil eye on us, like that. I think that's where it was supposed to come from, and I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me, like a protection prayer.
Right.
But the like, good vibes only bumper stickers and like kind of, you know, the toxic positivity of it all, and like just, you know, ask for something from the universe and it's just supposed to show up in your lap, and don't think anything negative ever, otherwise you're totally ruining it, is just such a impossible way to live. And I think it bothers me so much because of my time in my clinical work and seeing patients. I was a psycho-oncologist fellow at UCLA for a while, and all of my patients, you know, were going through an oncology diagnosis, or their families, and just this notion of like, I'm scared, or I have fear or anxiety, and now like someone told me that is going to further exacerbate my cancer, or that's why I got it. And like you know, because my mind is just not positive enough. Like those things drive me crazy.
Yeah. And then what is one thing that if you had the chance to whisper to a woman right now to let her know about true optimism or a better way to live life, what would you say?
I think I would say that like every single moment that you experience, and this is something I tell myself all the time, is temporary. And like that is sometimes really nurturing to hear when you're going through a tough time, but it's also gut-wrenching to hear when you're witnessing something beautiful, like with your children, but it also will pinpoint you towards savoring stuff more. So I think just reminding ourselves that every moment, every feeling that we have, every season that we're in is temporary.
I love that. Now, we have these little cards, which is how I actually met her. And she has these 2 cards. One is kid cards and the other one are for adults, and it's called Things Are Looking Up. It's a holistic and science-based collection of suggestions to inspire optimism. So I want to grab one of them just to show everyone.
Cool thing with the full circle moment for me with the kids deck is my kids illustrated it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cute. So look how pretty they are. They're all illustrated. And then when you go on the back side, it has the instructions card. And then, let's see. I'm going to ask you one question about your own card deck. Okay. Name one thing that makes you feel happy, relaxed, and calm. Maybe it's a bath, a massage, a glass of wine, a cup of tea, a walk, being with your pet, or being someone you love. Maybe it's singing your favorite song super loudly in your car. Whatever it is, do it today. It's not selfish to practice self-care. It's actually a form of positive survival, incredibly intelligent, and a step toward optimal living. Go on and take one for your own team. So I want to ask you, what are you going to do for yourself today?
Well, I started this practice for myself because, again, I believe the research shows that how you start your morning is actually has a big impact on your feelings for the remainder of the day. And so I truly believe having a sort of non-negotiable morning ritual is so important. Having said that, again, I do not believe in 12-step morning routines. No one can do them. You set yourself up for failure. It's one non-negotiable, and you can change it seasonally. But I started this one non-negotiable during COVID, and it has kept with me. And for people that might know me or have heard me speak before, you probably already know this about me, but I'm a vibe girl. So I like naming things, like I'm branding them in my head. I do something that I call wake up and dance.
Okay.
Every morning, right when I wake up, regardless of where I am or like what's going on, I ask myself what music I want to hear, and it's different all the time. And I turn it on. This is before I brush my teeth, before I change, before I talk to my husband, before I get my kids. And I just turn on the music and I dance. I can sometimes get 30 seconds in or a whole song, but like I start my morning that way.
Does your husband join you, or is it just
it's just me.
He just watches.
Yeah.
He's the audience member.
Yeah. He is used to it now. And I am in no way like this is not like professional dancing. This is just like moving and like letting go and being free. And it hits so many core values for me. I'm a big music person. Music gets me through everything. It always has. So music's big for me, but also just like moving. I'm here to admit I'm not great at exercising, but I do enjoy moving and like kind of just shaking things out and feeling free and like sexy and, reclaiming that part of my femininity. And like music just does that for me. So I start my day off like that.
I love that.
I'm excited because yes, the card decks are there. The Things Are Looking Up decks, but my book is coming out. I know. I forgot to tell you, but my book's coming out, which has...
What is it called?
All of this. It's called The Power of Real Optimism. So it's breaking down tons of myths about mental health and positivity, but also really it's just full of real stories, client stories, memoir sort of stories, but like hard science.
Do you have a date for it?
Yeah, it's going to come out at the very, very start of next spring. Well, the end of February of 2026.
So exciting. Or I can't wait to get it.
Yes, you will.
Yes. And I'll for sure make sure to add the cards in the links in the description if you are interested in getting them, whether it's for yourself or for your kids. It's also a really good gift to put in a basket or for different holiday parties, your friends, do a little basket. So thank you so much for being here. You
used them for like a brand dinner, right?
Yes, actually. I did use it. I went and did a brand dinner, 2 years ago.
Yeah,
I keep
like right
thinking
after
it was
we
last
met.
year, but it was the month after. I was telling her that I was doing a brand dinner of 12 creators in a house with the brand Solar Wave, and I put them all on the table, and they were all great for conversation.
Yeah,
conversation starters, and it just keeps the conversation going. It opens up vulnerability in a really light way. It's not like super deep and dark and, you know, it's just in a really light way where I found it refreshing. So
Thanks. I'm so glad you used them.
yes, thank you so much.
So good to be here.
Well, thank you for listening and watching, and until next time.